A lack of housing and affordable housing means Bloomington-Normal is losing out on some of the economic benefits created by Rivian. The shortage is also increasing the number of unhoused people in the community and has the potential to drive that rise to an exponential growth in homelessness. WGLT's Charlie Schlenker has more.
In 2021, the manufacturing sector in the McLean-DeWitt County labor market had 3,000 workers. The Labor Department numbers now show that sector employs 10,000 people. Economic Development Council Director Patrick Hoban says that still understates manufacturing because Rivian itself now tops 9,000 workers. 3 different sources show 50 to 80% of Rivian workers have a 45-minute commute to their jobs. And Patrick Hoban says that means the Twin Cities are losing that tax base.
Our biggest concern is that those tax dollars are going back to someone else's community. We would really love to capture those here to go into our grocery stores and our restaurants.
The housing shortage is so bad, there's only a 2% vacancy rate for Bloomington-Normal apartments. McLean County Regional Planning Commission community planner Mark Adams says when the apartment vacancy rate is that low, it distorts the marketplace. Adams says landlords have begun to be a lot more choosy, and that is creating barriers to finding affordable housing.
Requirements have gone up dramatically. We're seeing heavy application fees. Many landlords from our social service agencies have reported who are requiring 2 to 3 months in advance, and also who are requiring they have a certain credit score.
And the inability of people to find or afford a place to live is worse than you might think because Adams says affordable doesn't mean low income.
The average teacher can only afford to live in now 12% of the homes for sale within community distance of a school where they work, where it used to be 30% in 2019. Last time I checked, it's very important for teachers, for policemen, for firefighters, people who are not really seeing a lot of wage growth to live in the area that they're working in so that they're more accessible.
The U.S. Federal Housing Finance Agency has noted the housing price index for the Bloomington-Normal metro area has gone up 37% from 2022 to early 2023.
We have shared this number with a lot of external stakeholders, people who live in other parts of Illinois, usually their mouths drop because that's quite dramatic. So great for people who own their home, and not so great for people who would like to own their home or people who are trying to move here and raise a family.
About half the respondents to a recent Regional Planning Commission survey say they have had difficulty affording housing costs, rent, utilities, mortgages, homeowner association fees, and the like. And the survey skews toward people who are doing all right, because people in crisis don't have time to fill out surveys. More than 30% of survey respondents say they've considered moving out of McLean County, which has adverse implications for further economic growth. Adams says it is an issue not unique to Bloomington-Normal.
This is a workforce retention issue. The dramatic rise in property values has obviously increased purchase prices, which has shut a lot of the workforce that are trying to move or stay in the area out of the market. The U.S. economy lost about $1.6 trillion a year in lost wages and productivity due to this issue.
Not only does the housing shortage cost Bloomington-Normal sales tax and other revenue opportunities, it can drain community resources and increase need. The story of a nurse who recently asked for emergency assistance shows how that actually works. Adams says the woman and her kids lost their apartment when the landlord wanted to remodel.
Even with a steady income and a consistent employment, she could not find a new rental because of the low credit score. After months of working, applying for apartments, and paying high hotel fees, they were out of resources and could not afford another night's stay in a hotel.
The Regional Planning Commission is developing a regional housing recovery plan, due out in a couple months. It's supposed to craft actionable items for the community to address to make a dent in the lack of affordable housing. Adams says there's another bleak anecdote from a Housing Assistance Coalition report that shows this is the kind of crisis the community should address. Kyle, a single father with 3 kids, worked at a physical labor job. COVID complications cost him his eyesight. He was evicted while his application for disability benefits was in the works. He had no family nearby. There's no housing transition program. The homeless shelter is full. Adams says area social service agencies have distributed more than $6 million in federal pandemic recovery rental assistance to prevent just that kind of situation. That money is running out. Yet Adams says the need hasn't gone away. And as homelessness rises in a community, so does the strain on human service agencies, law enforcement, and the healthcare system.
Housing instability does worsen mental health conditions. It's very stressful, and your stress increases when it comes to housing affordability. Healthy and stable housing is a social determinant of health as well.
Adams says if Bloomington-Normal doesn't do anything to create new housing and affordable housing, the current rising trajectory of homelessness could become an exponential one. There are signs of hope. It's hard to finance construction of affordable housing, but McLean County recently became a part of the Tri-County River Valley Development Authority. Director Warren Ribley says the authority provides low-cost bond financing to stimulate development.
It is a lower cost and probably about the lowest cost source of financing that's out there.
He says it's the only entity in the state to have both state and federal tax exemptions for the bonds, which can shave 2.25% off the cost of borrowing. Ribley says to qualify, developers must set aside 20% of new apartment units for people who earn no more than half the area median income. That's close to $40,000.
They're not just for, quote, low-income renters. It's really become more of a product for what we call workforce housing. Those are people who are entry-level teachers, they're first responders, they're healthcare workers, people that are really just kind of getting their start.
The authority can issue up to $250 million in bonds. Ribley says there's plenty of room under that cap right now. The Regional Planning Commission survey shows there is an appetite for zoning reform, requirements for builders to include more affordable units, incentives for developers to build duplexes and non-standard units in what was single-family zoning, different density levels, and for replacing vacant or blighted commercial areas with housing. Here's community planner Mark Adams.
If you're familiar with the term Bloomington Beige, it kind of unpacks that we really just have single-family homes and multifamily and not really much in between.
Habitat for Humanity builds new affordable housing, but up until July of last year, Adams says there was no real nonprofit that acquires pre-existing stock and rehabs it so that it can be livable and affordable. Adams says the Bloomington-Normal Community Land Trust will be the first nonprofit to take that on. Adams says bright spots in the last 2 years include the Housing Navigator at Mid-Central Community Action, the McLean County Mental Health Action Plan, and the Invest Health Initiative. He says those things, new community partnerships, and the Housing Recovery Plan will help address the constellation of housing issues the community faces. I'm Charlie Schlenker.